The Nick Scott Effect. The Nick Scott Effect. Available on Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Facebook Watch, and everywhere podcasts are found. Interview requests and show notes available at djnickscott.com.
Hey, what's going on? It's Nick. Thanks for checking out the podcast. Today's podcast, a little impromptu. It's one of those kind of shows that come out of inspiration. I didn't plan on doing this today. And I don't know. I thought that this would be a cool subject, something maybe cool to talk about or intriguing to talk about. So I've got a lot of information I want to go through here and kind of tell you how this impromptu episode came to be. Now, first and foremost, I live in West Virginia. If you're watching or listening to this somewhere else, I'm in West Virginia. I'm originally from Cincinnati. I'll be forthright with you. Originally, I'm an Ohioan, but I've lived in West Virginia for about 16 years. So I've always told folks at this point, I'm an adopted West Virginian as long as I've been here. And I say that happily and proudly. I've told this story on national radio before. A lot of radio stations or even satellite or even gigs or shows that I performed at, you know, they'll introduce me as Nick Scott from West Virginia, and I wear that happily and proudly. So I tell you this, maybe to put a shield up or like a safeguard to say I'm not attacking West Virginia, because a lot of West Virginians are very passionate and very fervent about this topic. And this came up today just by happen chance. And I want to tell the story about what happened this morning, and then ultimately what led to me creating this podcast. Now, as we go through this, I encourage you to comment below. This is going to be available on YouTube and Facebook Watch, the video portion. The audio portion will be on Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and Stitcher. Now, if you're listening to this on any of those audio platforms, I encourage you to go to YouTube or go to my Facebook profile and pull up the video, because I have a lot of screenshots and I have a lot of screen captures and pictures that I'm going to be sharing throughout this episode that I think is very important to the conversation. So if you're listening to this on the audio, I greatly appreciate it, but I think you're going to get a little bit more out of this by watching the video portion of the podcast. So let's dive right into what happened this morning. I'm usually the first one up in my house. I got up at like 7 this morning. The wife and kids are still asleep. We don't leave for church till about 10. So I knew I had a few hours to kind of chill. Got a cup of coffee and started doing what I'd say most of us do. Started scrolling social media. And a friend of mine had shared a funny meme about the song Country Roads by John Denver, and it not at all being about West Virginia. And the point of the meme was it was showing geographical locations depicted in the song, most important, the Shenandoah River and the Blue Ridge Mountains. So first, I'm going to show you the meme that I shared. So we're going to take a look at it right now. There's the meme that I shared. It says, almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Those are the lyrics we all know and love. We all sing to the top of our lungs, especially here in the state of West Virginia. And directly below that is a geographical map showing the Blue Ridge Mountains, showing the Shenandoah River. So I shared this meme to my Nick Scott page, and within an hour, I probably had about 150 comments. Half of those were in support of what this meme is representing. The other half kind of laying into me for even sharing it, or laying into the creator of this meme. One that I found most hilarious is I think somebody forgot which account they were commenting from, because I had a restaurant in South Charleston, West Virginia, comment on this page, kind of not very nice, not very kind, kind of blasting me a little bit, but it was under the name of this restaurant. So I think it was like an owner or something that just forgot to choose what profile they were commenting on. It made me laugh, though, but they were defending, I guess, the West Virginia culture that is behind this song, which we're going to dive more into that in just a minute, too. But anyway, so I was sitting in church, started reading through these comments. Like I said, some of them not very polite, which is fine. I got thick skin. But I decided, you know what, I'm going to delete this post. I'm going to delete that I shared this because it's not my intention to put anything. I mean, there's enough negativity on social media and folks fighting and being at each other's throats. I don't feel like I need to add to that, you know? So I took it down. But as I was driving home from church, I was like, you know, that would be a great podcast episode. That'd be a great discussion about the origins of this song, the lyrics of this song, how it became so just a part of West Virginia culture, but also some of the kind of in-your-face details of the song that point that it's not about the state of West Virginia. So I thought it'd be great to talk about, and there's the meme. So the next thing we're going to talk about is something that this meme is depicting that Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River, John Denver is actually talking about Western Virginia. And as you can see here in this image, this is a geographical map of the Blue Ridge Mountains from the Encyclopedia Britannica. And as you see, the Blue Ridge Mountains kind of cut right down through southern Pennsylvania into Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, ending in South Carolina and Georgia. Now, one commenter said that the Blue Ridge Mountains and a part of the Shenandoah River actually run through the eastern panhandle near Maryland and D.C. So that's what John Denver was talking about. In a moment, we're actually going to read what John Denver was talking about. And if we go back to the earlier meme that I shared that set everybody off, you could see here where the Shenandoah River does, it appears by this map, run through Harper's Ferry. Am I saying that right? Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. I know if I said that wrong, I'm probably going to get raked over the coals. So I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure that's the name of the town, Eastern Panhandle. Again, Ohioan, lived in Charleston, my whole West Virginia experience. So if it's not Harper's Ferry, I apologize. I'm pretty sure I got the name of the town right. So let's scroll back down here. There is the Blue Ridge Mountains coming through. The next one is going to be a GIS, a map of the Shenandoah River. And as the one commenter pointed out, you could see where the Shenandoah River does, in fact, go through the most eastern tip of West Virginia. I mean, you can't get any further east than that. It's literally creating the border between West Virginia and Virginia. And then the rest of its span and, of course, its watershed goes into Virginia, the state of Virginia itself. So when you look at these, and as I scroll back through these, you can see where this meme here comes from. Almost Heaven, West Virginia. Clearly, we are talking about the state of West Virginia when we sing this song. Most of us do, right? But as you, Blue Ridge Mountains, boom. Well, do the Blue Ridge Mountains go through West Virginia? Technically, I guess, yes. Harper's Ferry, Eastern Panhandle. I think it's really probably more the Appalachians, but you see where this is going. Shenandoah River, right? Is it in West Virginia? Yes. Can you get any further east West Virginia than that? Not really. So this is why this meme was made. Again, I hope you're watching this. If you're following along audio only, I'm sorry, because you'll probably think I'm a crazy person. So I shared this meme, and in my comment section, I said, why does no one talk about this? Because if we are talking about Blue Ridge Mountain, Shenandoah River, I think we can all collectively agree that 98 to 90% of those two specific geographical locations, things are in Western Virginia. They are not a part of West Virginia, maybe just a sliver, okay, as we looked. Now that we got kind of this factual stuff out of the way, geographically factual information out of the way, let's dive into culture. So what made this such a hot button subject for West Virginians? You know, this song has become such a anthem to the state of West Virginia. And this speaks even true for me. When I first moved to West Virginia from Ohio, I'll be honest, I'd never been here before. Vacations that I had taken with my family or even trips with friends usually went to like Pigeon Forge or Gatlinburg. We went to Texas a couple times for like a church youth group when I was a teenager, things like that. So driving to West Virginia was, we never came this way. So, but I knew of the song Country Roads. You know, being a DJ and radio and all these things that I had done before moving here in 2006, I was familiar with the song Country Roads. And I think that's safe to say for, I would say, a large portion of the population outside of the state of West Virginia, we are familiar with Take Me Home Country Roads. But in the state of West Virginia, that song has a whole bigger, grander meaning. It's almost like a rallying cry or a source of pride for native West Virginians. And so when I shared this earlier, why is no one talking about this? And I shared this meme. That's why I got met with half the comments being pretty spicy. Because in West Virginia, West Virginians, this song being a rallying cry, being something that we can all gather gather around, gather together, uniting, if you will. It's a uniting song for West Virginians. And it's an anthem for West Virginians. And to be fair, you know, West Virginia, at least in my time here, in the 16 or so years I've been here, West Virginia doesn't get a lot of slack. You know, West Virginia takes a lot of hard knocks. West Virginia gets poked fun of a lot, gets made fun of a lot. There's nasty stereotypes, if I can use that word, about West Virginians that are out there. And as someone from Ohio, I can testify to those stereotypes that are out there being said and being made fun of to be true. When I told folks that I had accepted a job offer to move to Charleston, West Virginia, and that I was coming down here, oh, sure. I mean, a dozen or more people, two in particular, tried to persuade me not to come here with like an hour's worth of warnings and, you know, things to be aware of coming down here. Other people made the jokes that you hear that aren't very nice and flattering about hillbillies and stuff. So knowing that West Virginia doesn't get slack and often becomes the butt of a joke, when you have a song that is so popular and widely known as Take Me Home Country Roads, it's very easy to see why the whole population gathers around it with a sense of pride and a sense of like, this is our anthem, Take Me Home Country Roads. And then when an idiot like me shares this, it's very easy to see why so many people get upset. But I wanted to talk about it on the podcast because it's so interesting to me how we as humans, we feel such a deep connection to a song that we will go out of our way to express that, whether it be on social media or with other folks. So that's the cultural side of it. And then, of course, you add in, if you're a sports fan, it's like the official song for WVU, West Virginia University. If you're not familiar with West Virginia sports, we have no pro teams here. There's no professional anything here, I don't think. If I'm wrong, put it in the comments, but there's no professional baseball, no professional football, no professional basketball, no professional hockey, no professional soccer. We have no professional anything in the state of West Virginia. So the West Virginia Mountaineers are the football team. Unless you live in about a 30 to 40 mile radius around Huntington, West Virginia, then it's the Marshall Thundering Herd. But pretty much everywhere else is WVU. And I'll probably make someone mad by saying that. So when you have a football team that is pretty much the heart and soul of the entire sport addicts of a state, and that is their anthem, that is their song, that is their rallying cry. Not only are you taking the cultural part of the song we just discussed, but you also add in the being a fanatic in sports. It just really elevates it a whole nother level. So I know I've shared this a lot, but that's the original meme. We went through the different geographical maps of why folks were kind of making fun of this. And, some of the people in that comment thread that weren't upset, but they were like, hey, we're West Virginians and we don't like that song either because it's not about us. This is what they were alluding to. It's written about Western Virginia. So as I was preparing this conversation, I decided, well, let's dive in and read what John Denver actually said about it. So my wife actually found this article. It's from the West Virginia Public Broadcasting, and it talks exactly about John Denver and what he experienced and kind of where he got the inspiration from, what gave him the inspiration to write this song. So we'll go through this article together and see John Denver's words himself. I think it's fair to mention John Denver is from New Mexico. So he's not from Virginia or West Virginia. I think there's a lot of, I've heard people say that John Denver's from Virginia. He was writing it about Virginia, Western Virginia. No, he's from New Mexico. He lived in West Virginia. No, he lived in California. He died in California. He was a resident of California when he died, I should say. So neither one of those are true. So let's dive into this article. This article is titled, Did West Virginia Inspire Country Roads? Here's what we know. And the person being interviewed in this article is a gentleman by the name of Bill Danoff. It says one night in 1970, Bill Danoff and his girlfriend Taffy were hanging out with John Denver. They played a few verses from a song they'd been working on. Denver immediately said he wanted to record it. Says the three of them stayed up one night finishing the song, knowing little about the state. So this is from Danoff, the guy who co-wrote the song. The three of them stayed up all night finishing the song, knowing little about the state. Is that Virginia? Because it's about Western Virginia, or the state of West Virginia. I think the needle tips to West Virginia there. So Nivert pulled up an encyclopedia and looked up West Virginia. We just kept throwing out lines, Danoff said, and then we'd write down the ones that seemed to fit. They played Country Roads the next night at the Select Door, an iconic intimate venue in Washington, D.C. The people clapped for about 5 minutes straight after they concluded. Danoff said the first time they'd ever heard the song, and they knew they had something because that doesn't just happen. One audience member was Andy Ridenauer, who at the time was a student at Concord College, now Concord University in southern West Virginia. He said, I was on a holiday break between Christmas and New York along with some friends from West Virginia. We all went nuts when we heard it with our West Virginia connection. Quite frankly, everybody went nuts. So that's how they played it the first time. He says, so Danoff talks about he and the band flew to Roanoke, Virginia, and they had to drive over old US 460. A lot of it was 2-lane roads running parallel to the New River. And when John and his band got out of the car, they commented on the roads. They were happy that they safely arrived. When Country Roads was released the following year, Ridenauer said, Denver sent out an autographed copy of the album to the Concord radio station and said, thanks for the inspiration. The needle's ticking closer. This was, in fact, or I should say, it's ticking even more, like a lot more. This was, in fact, about West Virginia. The song has been a worldwide anthem since its release in April 1971. The opening verse mentions Blue Ridge Mountains and the Shenandoah River, two geographical features that are most associated with Western Maryland and Virginia. While the river and the mountains do touch a small portion of West Virginia's Eastern Panhandle, which we just talked about, Danoff said he wrote most of the song during the drive through rural Maryland. So they wrote those lyrics while they were driving through Maryland in the Blue Ridge Mountains and probably seeing the Shenandoah River. He says, quote, I was just driving out in Western Maryland, and it was kind of countryside that reminded me of my home and upbringing in Western England. But Danoff said he does have a connection to West Virginia. Growing up, he spent many evenings listening to the Wheeling Jamboree on WWVA. In the bridge of the song, there's a line, I hear her voice. In the morning hour, she calls me. The radio reminds me of my home far away. And riding down the road, I get a feeling I should have been home yesterday. I was thinking about that radio, Danoff said. I was thinking of WWVA and heading toward that radio signal. So there really was kind of an early and subconscious connection to this state of West Virginia. And as for the geographical issue, excuse me, when someone pointed out, Danoff came up with this answer on the fly. So I thought about it and I said, well, the guy's going home to West Virginia. He's going through Virginia and he's passing Blue Ridge Mountains and Shenandoah River. Can I blow this up? I want to blow this up because I think that ends our argument, really. And I know I'm doing this on the fly, so please be patient with me here. All right. So let's look at this section right here. I'm going to move my fat face out of the way so we can see it better. Okay, there we go. All right. So middle paragraph right here, I think is going to answer all of our questions and probably get most of you who are probably hanging off the ceiling at this point. It's going to calm you down. As for the geographical issue, when someone pointed that out, Danoff, who wrote the song, came up with this answer on the fly. Quote, so I thought about it and I said, well, this guy's going home to West Virginia. Well, the guy's going home to West Virginia. We just talked about it. And what do we find out? He was driving home. The guy was driving home to West Virginia, Concord University, relation there to the inspiration of the song, through Maryland. He was passing through the Blue Ridge Mountains and the Shenandoah River, as we see here. Was Country Roads written about West Virginia? The answer, conclusively, is yes. So, all of you that were writing mad, nasty things on that post earlier, if you want to send an apology, I enjoy Mick Ultra, Buffalo Trace, Bourbon. But if you don't want to send that, you can just subscribe to the Nick Scott Effect podcast.